equally new. They are not equal. And there is a major difference between the honor students and the inferior. I guess the difference is that the inferior are magic technicians and the honor students are magicians. I don't fucking know. All right. Then the next chapter, chapter 1, because that was chapter fucking 0. All right. All right, okay. I have no idea who's talking. It just says, I won't stand for it. And then somebody responds, are you still on about that? It was early in the morning on the day of First High's entrance ceremony, but still 2 hours before it began. The new students' hearts were all pounding with excitement over their new lives and the landscapes of their futures. Little did they know they're all about to be fucking wrecked by Tatsuya and his garbage. But certainly few were as elated as these two. In front of the auditorium, which would be the location of the entrance ceremony, a male and a female student. Yeah, this sounds like a human wrote this. Both clad in brand new uniforms were bickering. Both were new students, yet their uniforms were slightly but distinctly different. It was not just the fact that the female uniform had a skirt and the male one had slacks. Again, yeah. The emblem of First High, a design consisting of 8 flower petals, was on the female student's chest. It wasn't on the male student's blazer. This is... I know... I don't like that this is a translation because I want to blame this terrible prose on Tsutomu Sato because I hate him so much.
I don't know. From all the light novels I've ever scanned over, that's kind of how they're written. They're written at like a 5th grade level.
Mm-hmm. Well... Now, okay, so this is Miyuki. How could they make my brother an alternate? You had the top grades on the entrance exam. You should be the one representing the new students, not me. Tatsuya, leaving aside the question of where you got my entrance exam grades from, this is Magic High School, so they obviously need to prioritize practical magic ability over the written test. So, the ability to fly, the ability to perform cold fusion, the ability to read 30,000 lines of text in half a second, the ability to raise the dead, the ability to vaporize people, the ability to nuke any place in the world into oblivion from his own living room. That doesn't count as practical magic ability.
Hmm?
Oh, also immortality.
What's really important is pushing 1
hour. That's the most important thing in the world. You're well aware of my practical abilities, aren't you? I may have only reached course 2, but I'm surprised I even got this far. He's already a famous engineer. He has 11, but he's saying he's impressed he got this far, but he already has 11 secret identities, some of which are extremely important engineers. The female student...
Wait, Popka, was that your Tatsuya voice?
I was just reading Tatsuya's line.
Okay, so that's your Tatsuya voice.
Whatever.
I just wanted to know how you'd sound when you had to read his word.
Okay.
All
right, so here's a reason why you need to name your characters early on, because they're still calling Miyuki the female student. Like, not even the girl, or, like, come on. The female student was lashing out in harsh tones, and her male companion was trying to pacify her. Purely guessing from the female student calling him her brother, they might have been siblings. This is... Oh my god.
Oh god, this is brilliant.
This is worse than Ayn Rand. However, if they were brother and sister, then they were not very alike. The younger sister was a cute girl who naturally drew stares. 10 out of 10 people, even 100 out of 100, wouldn't deny that she was lovely. Excuse me, I need to go throw up. The older brother, on the other hand, aside from his straightened back and sharp eyes, looked altogether average, without any features that stood out. Why can't you have more ambition than that? This is Miyuki. No one can beat you when it comes to studies in martial arts. I mean, even with magic, the sister firmly berated her brother's weak-spirited statement. Oh my god, I can't do this. Okay, so Miyuki just spoke. And then it is, and it did not indicate that she was about to speak. Instead, it goes on to her saying that she said something in the past tense. And then Tatsuya, he just says Miyuki. It says he called her name in an even harsher tone of voice, causing her to catch her breath and close her mouth. Yeah, I gotta shut fucking women up. We've been over this before. There's no point in talking about it. I apologize. Miyuki, he rested his hand on her bowed head as he slowly caressed her glossy, smooth, long hair. The young man considered, rather pathetically, how to get her in a better mood. I am grateful you feel that way. You're always saving me by getting angry on my behalf, he said. You're lying. I'm not. Yes, you are. All you do is scold me. I'm not lying. It's just that I feel about you the same way you feel about me. Oh, okay. So he says that, and the next page is an illustration of her, like, turning away from him and blushing.
Is it
and then
cut
Yuki
well?
says, oh my, the same way? And then this is Tatsuya's thoughts, I guess, but for reading in third person. What? For some reason, the girl's cheeks flushed red. He got the sense that there was some sort of disconnect he really shouldn't be ignoring. Nevertheless, he decided to shelve his doubts in order to resolve the problem at hand. Even if you refused to make the address, they would never choose me instead. You would lose face for sure if you were to refuse them at the last moment. And you actually know that, don't you? You're a smart kid after all. Also, Miyuki, I'm looking forward to it. I'm proud to have you as my sister. Go out there and show your useless brother everything you have. You're not a useless brother, but I understand. I apologize for my self-indulgence. Yeah. There's nothing to apologize about, and I don't think it was self-indulgent at all. I'll be going then. Make sure you watch. Yeah, you should go. I'll be looking forward to the main event. Just saying the same thing over and over again. So what am I supposed to do now? That's Tatsuya thinking. He had accompanied an unwilling student representative to school for the rehearsal, but now he was at a loss, worrying about what to do for the 2 hours until the entrance ceremony began. I don't know. He could probably work on one of his secret science projects. The campus had 3 parts. This is important. The campus had 3 parts: a main building, a practicum building, and a laboratory building. There is an auditorium and a gymnasium. Fucking hell. It says there is an auditorium/gymnasium whose inner layout was mechanically alterable. There were libraries on the 3rd floor, and this makes it sound like there's a library on the 3rd floor of the auditorium. There were libraries on the 3rd floor and the 2nd basement floor. There were 2 smaller gymnasiums. There was a preparation building used for changing. Okay, so this is that Mahouka exposition that just explains everything in a completely unnecessary level of detail, and I am considering not reading this.
No, please read it.
No, read it.
The dining hall.
At least read this one, and then maybe we could skip the others.
The dining hall / cafeteria / vending machine area was in another building.
Wait, does it actually have the slash?
Yes, it actually has a slash.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, go ahead.
And there were various other structures, both large and small, filling First High's plot of land. It looked more like a suburban college campus than a high school. The young man, in search of somewhere to sit while he waited for the entrance ceremony to begin, walked down a road of soft-coat pavement made to resemble bricks as he looked back and forth. The students used ID cards to gain access to the school's facilities, but those wouldn't be distributed to them until the ceremony ended. Even when the public-facing cafe for visitors was closed today, perhaps to avoid the chaos, after 5 minutes of walking around comparing what he saw to the map of the premises, he really knows how to entertain himself. He found in the trees, positioned far enough apart not to obstruct the view. Vaguely grateful it wasn't raining today. That's a weird thing to be grateful for. He sat down on a bench for 3, then opened his portable terminal and accessed one of his favorite book websites. I don't really know what that means. Like a website that sells books. This courtyard appeared to be a shortcut leading from the preparation building to the auditorium. I don't really know. Okay, it says perhaps they were being made to manage the ceremony. They is italicized. Okay, it's referring to already enrolled students. Then in parentheses, to him, upperclassmen. Thank you, we didn't know that. Passed in front of him, leaving a little bit of space between them. Well, on each of the students' left breasts was the 8-petaled emblem. Their innocent malice scattered behind them as they walked away.
What does that even mean?
Well, okay, they're prejudiced against him because he doesn't have the flower.
Oh, okay.
Said, "Hey, isn't that kid a weed? Here this early, pretty enthusiastic for a sub. He's just a spare anyway." A conversation he didn't want to hear drifted to his ears. You know, you could have put that sentence before they started talking, so that. And then, okay, yeah. And here's the last thing: weed was the term used to refer to course 2 students. Now, at this point, we don't know what weed means. We probably could have inferred it from this, but if they really wanted to tell us that, that's fine. They have not told us what course 2 student means. Students with 8 petals on the left breast of their... Okay, well, I guess I should have trusted Tsutomu Sato to explain it in a completely unnecessary level of detail, so... Students with 8 petals, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, they were blooms. From the emblem, they're called blooms because of the emblem's design. The students who didn't have them were called weeds, since they wouldn't bloom into flowers. Even though, if you look at weeds, a lot of them do bloom into flowers, but I guess Tsutomu Sato never goes outside, so he doesn't know that. This school had 200 freshmen. Out of them, 100 would be enrolled as students belonging to Course 2, meaning that literally half of the student population is going to be oppressed, but that's okay. First High, an educational institution attached to National Magic University, was a statutory body created to foster magic technicians. It was obligated to show a certain level of results in exchange for government funds. The school's quota, the number of students it was to supply to National Magic University, was at least 100. Unfortunately, magic education was prone to accident. Magic failures, whether in exercises or experiments, were directly correlated with accidents that were anything but minor. The students were aware of such dangers. They had staked their own futures in their magic talent and the possibilities in striving to become magicians. They had a rare talent, and when rare talents are highly valued by society, few can abandon them. That was all the more true when it came to emotionally immature... So, they're taking the Course 2 students who cannot use magic, and they're not going to teach them how to use magic. And they don't need them because they only need 100 students. And they're putting them in an environment where they are liable to get killed by accident.
10 out of 10.
Man, don't you world building?
That was all the more true when it came to emotionally immature young men and women. The only visions of their future left to them were the spectacular ones. That wasn't itself necessarily a bad thing, but the truth was that more than a few children would be hurt as a result of those ingrained values. Of course, those values are all perfectly fine. This is not actually criticism of those values, as we all know from watching the show. Thankfully, the accumulation of magical understanding had all but eliminated accidents resulting in death or physical handicaps. Well, then I guess we didn't need to hear that, did we? But psychological factors could easily spoil magical talent, like aggressive bullying that is life-threatening every single day of your life for no reason. A significant number of students withdrew from school every year after being threatened by other students who wanted to literally decapitate them. I made that part up. That's not what it says.
It might as well have been.
And the ones to make up for those losses were the Course 2 students. So they're all just fodder. They were permitted to register as students, attend classes, and make use of the facilities and resources, but they had no access to individual magic practice with an instructor, even though this is a rare talent that is highly valued that society can't abandon. They studied unaided and produced results solely on their own merits. In other words, they weren't supervised for the dangerous magic experiments that kill people every year. If they couldn't do that, then they would only qualify themselves to graduate as general education students, and they wouldn't be able to advance to National Magic University. Currently, the critical shortage of those who could teach magic forced them to prioritize those with talent. The Course 2 students were only allowed to enroll in the first place under the premise that they would not be taught. So, I don't really... It was officially prohibited to call Course 2 students weeds, but it had established itself even among the Course 2 students themselves as a semi-public derogatory term. Even they thought of themselves as no more than spare parts. And that's a good thing. That went for this young man as well. So Tatsuya does not think of himself as spare parts because he already has 11 secret identities, he works for the government, and he has the powers of God. There was no need to remind him by purposely speaking poorly of him within earshot. He had been fully aware of that when he enrolled. I didn't really ask for your... So it's been 2 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11 paragraphs since he overheard this conversation, and then he responds to it.
Quality writing.
There was a clock displayed on his open terminal, and it pulled his reading-immersed mind back to reality. Yeah, it wasn't immersed in reading. Apparently, it was immersed in a bunch of historical details that nobody needed to know. 30 minutes remained until the entrance ceremony. So it took 2 hours for him to remember all that. Are you a new student? It's opening time. He logged out of his usual book website and closed his terminal, but as he was about to get up from the bench, a voice came down to him. I can't... This is the, 5th time that somebody spoke, and it was just an interruption. Like, it didn't follow from anything before it. And then the next sentence is saying somebody spoke in the past tense. And this is actually making this, almost physically painful to read.
So when are you going to burn this?
No.
No.
The first thing that caught his eye was the school uniform skirt, then the wide bracelet on her left wrist. It was the latest CAD model, but significantly thinner than the more common types, and with an eye toward fashion. And then they're going to explain exactly what a CAD is.
Explain.
CAD, a casting assistant device. It was also simply called a device or an assistant. In this country, some use the term broom, which
what?
What?
Because it's a shortening of the Japanese word for magic operator. I don't think it is, but whatever. It was an indispensable tool for modern magic technicians, providing activation programs for triggering magic in the face of more yada 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 yada. Incantations used to use magic properly with a single word or phrase hadn't been developed yet. Reciting a spell could take anywhere from 10 seconds to more than a minute. The CAD substituted all that for a simpler control that you do it in less than a second. You could still perform magic without a CAD, but it accelerated the casting process by leaps and bounds to the point where there were virtually no magic technicians who didn't use one. Even the so-called espers, who could cause supernatural phenomena just by thinking about it, tended to sacrifice their specialization in certain areas in exchange for the speed and stability offered. Why would they do that? All right. However, not everyone could use magic just by having a CAD. They only provided activation programs. Actually executing the magic required the abilities of the magic technician himself. Therefore, CADs were useless to those who couldn't use magic. So he's just designing his world, setting people up to fail. If you saw someone who had one, it was near certain they were involved with magic. Well, I mean, that's kind of self-evident, isn't it? If you saw somebody in real life and they had a metal detector, wouldn't you assume they were involved in metal detecting? He's saying that this device, whose only purpose is to do magic, if you see someone who has one, it means that they're involved with magic. And if Tatsuya recalled correctly, the only students permitted to carry their CADs around with them were those on the student council and members of certain committees. At her left breast was an 8-petaled emblem. The swell of her chest that pushed out her blazer didn't enter his mind. But it entered somebody's mind. Okay. He didn't bother to hide his lack of an emblem. He wasn't so servile. But that isn't to say he didn't feel a sense of inferiority. How could he feel inferior to anyone? He had thought that a student council-worthy honor wouldn't... wouldn't want to be so proactive in approaching him. I'm impressed. That's the kind with the screen, isn't it? But she didn't, apparently didn't share that opinion. Again, with the speaking out of turn and then saying that somebody spoke in the past tense. It's intolerable. Nobody should write like this. Translation, because I assume they're translating it in like sequential order, right? It's this Tomosato's fault for being a fucking idiot. It was then that the young man saw her face at last because, he was too busy looking at her boobs. But it didn't enter his mind. When he stood up from the bench, her head was about 20 centimeters below his. He was 175 centimeters. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Necessary.
She was at the perfect eye level to verify he was. Yes, we know. Oh my god! But there was absolutely okay. She knew. She knows he's a weed. She knows he is a subhuman. That's the point. But there was absolutely no condescension in her eyes. Only a pure, innocent admiration. Students are prohibited from carrying virtual display terminals inside our school. Unfortunately, that's the type most students use. But you've been using the kind with the screen even before you enrolled here, haven't you? The virtual kind isn't suitable for reading, so... Alright, just trails off. Anyone could tell... Yeah, there's an ellipsis. Anyone could tell at a glance that his terminal was something he was experienced with, so he didn't ask any unnecessary questions in return. He had replied with what was almost an explanation because he thought being too curt would end up disadvantaging his younger sister more than himself. She was the representative of the new students, so there was no doubt that she'd be chosen to the student council. Chosen to the student council. Is that grammatically correct?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. His calculated answer, however, only served to deepen his upperclassman's admiration. So, you prefer reading to watching videos. You grow ever more unusual by the second. I appreciate printed materials more than images as well, so I'm rather happy to hear that. They did live in an age where virtual materials were preferred to text, but book lovers were still far from exotic. She seemed possessed of an almost unusually sociable personality, even when her tone of voice and word choice were growing more informal by the second. All right, so we already know by now this is the student council president who is literally Hitler.
How she stutters.
I do apologize. I'm the student council president of First High, Mayumi Saegusa. It's written with the kanji for 7 and grass. Pleased to meet you. She threw in a wink at the end, but her tone of voice was far from mysterious. Her gorgeous looks combined with her shapely body, despite her short stature, she had an alluring air that male students couldn't help but misunderstand. Except Tatsuya, because that never entered his mind. And yet, after hearing her introduce himself, he found himself wanting to scowl. Yeah. Ability in magicians varied wildly based on genetic disposition. The family you're from was deeply important when it came to your merit as a magician, and in this country, it was customary for the families that possessed exceptional blood for magic to have numbers in their surnames. The numbers were lineages of magicians who had superior genetic predisposition, and the Saegusa family, with the character for 7 in its name, was one of the 2 in Japan currently considered to be the most powerful. And this girl, who was most likely part of the direct bloodline, was the student council president. In other words, she was an elite among elites. It might not be a stretch to say that they were polar opposites. Tatsuya, who works for the government and is immortal. He suppressed a bitter murmur at that, somehow managing a friendly smile. I can't even imagine that.
Tatsuya smiling.
Yeah. Did he ever smile in the show? Except for that one part when he was like, I would totally fuck my sister if she wasn't my sister.
No. I can't think of a moment now.
He says, my name is Tatsuya Shiba. Tatsuya Shiba. Ah, so you're that one. Well, after all, she probably means that dropout who can barely use magic, despite being the older brother of the top new student, Miyuki Shiba. That's Tatsuya's thoughts. He chose to politely remain silent. Rumors about you are the talk of the teachers, you know. He figured the rumors were because of how different he and his younger sister were. How can he not know? How can he not know that everybody already knows that he's literally Jesus? He is Jesus. He can fly, he can raise the dead, he cannot be killed. And he thinks that everybody hates him because he's inferior.
This is cool.
Your average across all
Sort of
7
thing.
subjects on the enrollment exam was 96 out of 100. I am honestly shocked that it wasn't 100 out of 100. I'm surprised that Tsutomu Sato was willing to give himself like that level of self-effacing, like, equivocation. All right.
I'm dying.
The particular highlights were magical theory and magical engineering. The average score on those 2 subjects for those who passed didn't even come up to 70, and yet you scored perfectly on both, including the essay sections. They say that such a high score is unprecedented. Tatsuya decided he was only imagining this praise. After all, those were only my grades on the written test. They only go so far as the information system. A Magic High School student's value is not based on his test grades, but on his practical ability scores. They already said this. Tatsuya indicated his lack of an emblem with a pained but friendly smile. This book is giving him so much like emotions that I don't actually think he has. There is no way the student council president wouldn't know what he meant by that, but in response, she smiled and shook her head. Not up and down, but left to right. Oh, thank you. Yeah. At the very least, I wouldn't be able to emulate such amazing grades. I score fairly highly on theoretical subjects, but I don't think I can get the amazing score you did on the entrance exam, even if I got the same questions as you. Time is short, so if you'll excuse me, Tatsuya told her, he had turned away from her without waiting for a reply. Yeah, nice. Somewhere in his mind, he feared her smile, and he feared her continuing to talk to him.
What?
He fears girls smiling at him.
Of course.
And then there's a picture of her in all her horrible... whatever. All right. Since Tatsuya had spent time talking to the student council president, more than half the seats in the auditorium were already filled by the time he entered. The seating was not generally assigned. Students were free to sit in the front row, the back row, right in the middle, on the sides, or wherever else they wanted. Even in modern times, schools followed the old tradition of announcing who was in what class before the entrance ceremony and then seating the students by class. What? All right. In this school, though, you wouldn't find out what class you were in until you were issued an ID card. Therefore, the room didn't naturally split up by class. I legitimately have no idea what was just said here. There was, however, a clear rule governing the district of fucking course. So, yeah, they say the students can sit anywhere they want. That's the first thing they say. That's the second thing they say on this page, that the students can sit anywhere they want, right? There was, however, a clear rule. The Course 1 students sat in the front, and the rear half was for the weeds. The students with unadorned fabric on the pocket of their left breast, the new students who had been allowed in italics, the new students who had been allowed to enroll and who would be treated as substitutes. All the students may have been new freshmen starting school today, but they were evenly split between front and back based on the presence of that emblem, regardless of the fact that nobody was forcing them to do so. I guess those who feel the discrimination the strongest are those on the receiving end. No fucking shit. That was certainly a kind of wisdom to live by. He didn't feel like daring to go against it, so he found an empty seat near the middle in the back third of the room and sat down. He glanced at the clock on the wall. 20 minutes left. Communications were restricted within the auditorium, so he couldn't access his literature sites. He'd read through all the data saved to his personal terminal countless times anyway, and taking out his terminal in a place like this would be a breach of etiquette. He tried to imagine his sister, who was probably going over her final rehearsal at the moment, and shook his head a little. There was no way she would be struggling right before the event. She can't do shit without him, so... Yeah, no, she can. You saw the show.
I saw the show.
In the end, without anything left to do, Tatsuya slid deeper into his cushionless chair and closed his eyes. He was about to let him... I didn't even know that he sleeps.
This is...
Sleep.
Somebody addressed him, "Excuse me, is this seat open?" So, see, this is how you're supposed to do it. Like, you announce first that someone's about to speak, and then you have someone speak. He opened his eyes to check, and sure enough, it had been directed at him. As her voice had implied, it was a female student. Yeah. Go ahead. He was slightly dubious about why she would want to sit next to a male student she'd never seen before when there were plenty of other seats left. I like how he specifies, like, male student. The seats themselves were fairly roomy, too, leaving aside how comfortable they were, and the girl in question had a narrow build. Note, in terms of width anyway, if not depth. What does that mean?
It means she has big tits.
All right. But she's not fat. That's what it's saying. So it wouldn't inconvenience Tatsuya at all if she were to sit next to him. As opposed to, a fat person. That would just be awful. In fact, it was better than... the next sentence is, in fact, it was a better deal than having a sweaty ball of muscle staying there.
Wow.
Okay. All right. With that in mind, Tatsuya nodded amiably. The girl bowed her head, thanked him, and sat down. Do you think this is the red-haired girl from the show?
Oh, this is Kanahana.
Oh, the glasses girl?
Yes.
The one who's a slut because she didn't wear sleeves?
Yes.
The girl bowed... Okay, so
I didn't know
see.
that was voiced by Tanahana. Anyway.
Was it? I've lost all respect for her. All right. Are they friends? Seems unusual. Okay, so 4 other girls come to sit by her. Are they friends? Seems unusual that 4 of them would all pass the exam to get into this difficult school, and that they'd all be Course 2 students, thought Tatsuya. He felt it wouldn't be strange if at least one of them had better grades, though it didn't really matter to him. He didn't have any further interest regarding his fellow students who had coincidentally sat down. They asked to sit down next to him. He redirected his gaze to the front, but then she addressed him once more. "Excuse me, what could it be?" She was clearly not... He's, so put off by the fact that someone wants to talk to him. He's like, God, what does this fucking bitch want? Like, she's sitting next to me, Yeah, it is the glasses girl. Mizuki Shibata. Yeah, she says, "My name is Mizuki Shibata. Pleased to meet you," came the unexpected self-introduction. Both her tone and appearance were timid. He knew you couldn't judge a book by its cover, but she didn't seem the type to appeal herself to others. So he decided she was probably forcing herself. Maybe someone put a foolish idea in her head. What the hell is wrong with this book? "Tatsuya Shiba, pleased to meet you too," he replied with the softest attitude he could muster. A look of relief passed through her eyes behind her big lenses. Girls wearing glasses were fairly unusual in this day and age. As a result of the proliferation of orthoptic therapies, orthoptic, is that right? I guess so. Starting around the mid-21st century, the myopia condition was rapidly becoming a thing of the past. The myopia condition, not just myopia. As long as you didn't have a fairly severe congenital abnormality in your eyesight, you didn't need vision-correcting tools. And if your eyesight did need correcting, contact lenses you could wear for years at a time without causing physical harm were also readily available. Reasons to actually wear glasses came down to simple preference, fashion reasons, or push-on radiation sensitivity, which is in italics. Just by turning a bit, he could tell her lenses weren't angled. At the very least, she wasn't wearing them to correct her vision. And from the impression she probably didn't like them for their fashion value. He naturally thought she was wearing them out of some kind of need. Push-on radiation sensitivity is a condition in which you saw too much. People with it could see push-on emissions without trying to. I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about. All right. And they were unable to concentrate and make them go away. It was a type of perception control failure. But it wasn't an illness, nor was it an impediment. The person's senses were just too sharp. Push-ons and scions. Both were metapsychological phenomena, as was magic itself. No, all right.
Wait, was this in the... This wasn't in the anime, was it?
No, it wasn't. Well, it was after he told her that he was going to make her hang out with that dude who said he would rape her. Yeah.
Okay.
They were observable particles that didn't fall under the category of fermions. Particles constructed from matter from... Wait, what? They didn't fall under the category of fermions, particles constructed from matter, nor bosons. All right, so this is really bad parallelisms here, but which created reciprocal action between matter. They were non-physical particles. Yeah.
What?
I'm so glad the
Currents-
magic mumbo jumbo is exactly intact where it should be.
Current science believed scions were particles that gave form to will and thought, while push-ons made up the emotions created by will and thought. So this is just drivel. Normally, scions were the particles utilized in magic, and modern magic's systematized techniques placed emphasis on controlling them. Magicians started out by learning scion manipulation techniques. The light from push-on emissions affected the emotions of those who saw them. One theory said, okay, if they're not physical objects, then why can they create light? like light is the photons being expelled from electrons, right? Leaving an excited state, so whatever. One theory said it was why push-ons were the particles that made up emotions. Because of that, though, push-on radiation sensitivity, I'm just like habitually kind of tearing off little bits of the pages of this book. Partially because it's already been done, because somebody cut the cover up so much, and they're kind of hanging off and it's bothering me. Yeah, there's like a little pile of little pieces of paper next to me that I've torn off of the cover of this book and the following pages. The method of preventing this was controlling one's sensitivity to push-ons, but those who couldn't do so were assisted by alternate scientific means. One of those means was to wear glasses with special lenses called aura-coating lenses. Push-on radiation sensitivity actually wasn't an unusual condition for a magician to have. Since go on, please. This is a whole page devoted to nothing. Sensitivity to push-ons and sensitivity to scions were generally positively correlated, so it was thought that extreme sensitivity to push-on radiation was just something that many magicians needed to deal with. But symptoms of the level where one needed to block the push-ons with glasses were indeed unusual. Then why did you need to tell us that it's not unusual? It would be one thing if I'm skipping the next 4 sentences.
Okay. Are you reading them yourself though?
I skimmed them and I realized that they contain nothing that is of use to any person on the planet.
Does anything in this book have anything of use to anyone on the planet?
No. Tatsuya had been keeping a secret to himself. A secret that, if witnessed normally, would be incomprehensible. He didn't need to worry about it being seen in the first place. But if she had special eyes that could perceive push-ons in the same way as visible light, she might notice it by sudden chance. He would probably need to act with more caution than normal around her. I am Erika Chiba. Nice to meet you, Shiba. Okay, so that's the red hair. And they're doing the same thing again where they have someone speak as an interruption and then they refer to it in the past tense, except this time there's another sentence in between that he says, so it's even more confusing. He had been staring at Mizuki unconsciously the whole time. And remember, this is the character with the biggest tits. This is kind of a funny coincidence, isn't it? Unlike her friend, this one didn't seem shy or scared around strangers. Her short hair, bright hair color, they don't say it's red, but it is red, and handsome features amplified the impression of her being an energetic, lively person. What? I mean, we have Shiba, Shibata, and Shiba, right? It's like a pun, isn't it? I mean, not exactly, but still. I see. It certainly was not exactly a pun, but he understood what she was trying to say. Even so, Chiba, meaning 1,000 leaves, another one of the numbers. I don't think there was a girl named Erika in the Chiba family, but it's possible she's part of a branch family. As he mused about it, the girls talked about how she was right and how it was funny. After the 2 remaining girls across from Erika gave their introductions, they don't matter. Tatsuya found himself wanting to indulge his trivial curiosity. Did the 4 of you go to the same junior high? Erika's answer, however, was unexpected. No, we all just met a little while ago. Why is that unexpected? That's exactly what he thought was the case, isn't it? Like, he thought that they couldn't have all gone to the same school because at least one of them would have gotten into the Course 1 class. I wasn't sure where to go, so I was having a staring contest with the directions board. Nobody talks like that. Then Mizuki came up to me and we started talking. The directions board. That's strange, thought Tatsuya. All of the information for the enrollment ceremony, including where it was to take place, had been distributed to every new student. If you used the local positioning system that came standard on portal terminals, then even if you hadn't looked at the directions to the ceremony, even if you didn't remember anything, you wouldn't get lost. The three of us forgot to bring our terminals, you see. Well, it says on the enrollment brochure that the virtual kind isn't allowed. I barely made it in the first place, and I didn't want to have people staring at me already during the ceremony, you know? He wasn't convinced. This is your own entrance ceremony, so you could at least make sure you know where it's happening. These were his honest thoughts, but he didn't give voice to them. No need to create meaningless discord. Oh, yeah, just nuke China. No need to create meaningless discord. Miyuki's address was, as predicted, fantastic. Tatsuya didn't have the faintest belief that his sister would stumble over something as insignificant as this, though. She can't even dress herself without him. You remember that? She's like, she runs in there wearing underwear, and she's like, Tatsuya, like, tell me what to wear. And he's like, why don't you just put some fucking clothes on? She's like, no, I want to wear what you want me to wear. It had contained a handful of fairly risky phrases, like, everyone is equal, united as one, even outside magic, and integral. Oh, yeah, so risky. It would certainly be lively around her starting tomorrow, but that, too, would be the same as always. For one reason or another, Tatsuya's fondness of Miyuki was enough to be called a sister complex when compared to societal convention. You don't say. He wanted to go congratulate her right away, but unfortunately, the post-ceremony time was used for distributing ID cards. They hadn't created cards for everyone ahead of time. Instead, they would bring their normal identification, and the school data would be written to a card on the spot. The process could be completed at any of the windows, but that, like the seating in the auditorium, created a natural wall. Miyuki would ignore that part, but as the representative of the incoming freshman, she had already been given a card anyway, and now there were tons of guests and student council members crowding around her. Shiba, what class are you in? Erika asked him, unable to conceal her excitement. I don't know what she's excited about. They had all moved to the windows as a group, with Tatsuya receiving his ID card last. In other words, he was pretending to care about the ladies first thing. That's what it says. That's in parentheses. It says that.
Holy shit. That's amazing.
Class E. Yes, we're in the same class. She jumped for joy at his response. It was a bit of an exaggerated gesture. I'm in the same class too. Mizuki looked excited too, but she didn't make the same over-the-top movement. Maybe this was normal for new high school students. I'm in F class. I get G, so that's why the other girls didn't matter, because not in his class. But that wasn't to say the light responses of the other two were any less enthusiastic. The important part was that they were in high spirits for this event, entering high school. This school had 8 classes per grade and 25 students per class. Up to that point, it was equal. But then the weeds, who weren't anticipated to bloom, were placed in classes E through H, separated from the greenhouses the blooms would be placed in, since they were expected to blossom into huge flowers.
What?
Yeah. They naturally split up with the 2 female students who ended up in another class. They seem to be going toward their retrospective homerooms. The homerooms are different because they were split between A through D and E through H, but that didn't seem to put a damper on their excitement at all. It wasn't as though every Course 2 student was hung up on it. There were plenty of kids who thought, wow, I managed to get into an elite school that was a little out of my reach, too. The school was rated as one of the top in the country, even for subjects other than magic, after all. The 2 of them had probably gone looking for their friends in their classes they'd be spending the next year with.
Wait,
What?
Wait, so the school they attend isn't just for magicians or magic technicians?
Magic.
No, apparently not.
I don't think that was in the anime.
What else would they?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
But I don't remember. I don't care. Let's see. What do you want to do? Should we drop by our classroom too? Asked Erika, looking up at Tatsuya's face. Mizuki didn't ask, probably because she was also looking up at him. Aside from schools that preserved old traditions, high schools didn't use homeroom teachers these days. They didn't need people to call students to the office, and the luxury of wasting personnel expenses on something like that was rare. Everything was handled by communications among terminals connected to the school network. The norm for decades now had been to give each student a personal terminal to use in school. These information terminals were even used for personal teaching. No, Zeta, this is chapter 1 now. Uh... As long as it wasn't for skill coaching or other large-scale activities. If a student needed further care, schools always had multiple professionally qualified counselors or many different fields of expertise on staff. Of course, this is only for the Course 1 students and not for the Course 2. The reason, then, that homeroom itself was necessary was because it was convenient for practice and experiments. They needed to preserve a certain number of people so practice and labs would end both on time and without any extra time. Though leftovers still spring up every day. Plus, having your own assigned terminal was also highly convenient for many reasons. It didn't matter what the scenery was like. Spending a long time in a single room meant that you would naturally deepen exchanges with others. The removal of homeroom teachers tended to strengthen relationships between students. In any case, going to homeroom would be the quickest option if they wanted to make new friends. Tatsuya, however, shook his head at Erika's request. He's not making any friends here. Sorry, I'm supposed to meet up with my younger sister. He knew there were no classes or announcements today. He promised Miyuki to return home with her right after she'd finished up with her formalities. Wow, she must be pretty cute if she's your sister, Shiba, murmured Erika. It sounded like both an impression and a question and left him without quite knowing how to answer her. What does she mean by if she's your sister, he thought. He felt like her conclusion wasn't following from... What's it?
He's autistic.
Yes, apparently. Fortunately, there was no reason to force himself to answer because Mizuki asked him a more fundamental question. A younger sister. Could she be Miyuki Shiba, the new student representative? He answered the question with a single nod to strongly imply affirmation. That's one way, I guess this is just how... I mean, like, that's another thing that, like, that's not the translation. That's something Tsutomu Sato actually wrote. Wait, really? Are you twins? It was an understandable question and one Tatsuya was pretty used to. We get asked that a lot, but we're not twins. I was born in April and she was born in March. If it had been born a month earlier or my sister a month later, we wouldn't have been in the same grade. Huh, that sounds kind of complicated. Why is it complicated?
I don't know.
They were born a year apart in different months. Like, that's it. Who the fuck cares? Like, come on. It certainly was complicated being in the same grade as his sister, an honor student, but Erika didn't mean any harm by the question. Tatsuya smiled and passed over it. But I'm surprised you figured it out. Shiba isn't that unusual a last name. The two girls smiled a little at his response. There was a notable difference in the shade between them, though. No, it's pretty unusual. Your faces look alike. Do they? It probably indicated that Mizuki's words came from the same foundations. Okay, he doesn't believe that he and his sister look similar. Probably because of all the genetic modification that was done to make sure their incest babies would be healthy. Even if he removed himself from the favorable light he cast on her as a family member, Miyuki was an uncommonly pretty girl. Even without her exorbitant abilities, which include freezing Chinese people, she couldn't help but attract attention wherever she went. She was a natural-born idol. No, a star. When he looked at her, he was always reminded of the proverb that God never grants gifts to a person, and how much of a lie that was. Tatsuya's own measurement of self-worth was, upon reflection, a bit above average, or maybe in the upper middle zone, even though, you know, he is immortal, like he can't die. During junior high, he would see his sister getting love letters practically on a daily basis, though Tatsuya saw them more as fan mail. He never received anything like that even once. They should share the same genetic code, but that didn't stop Tatsuya from doubting their blood relationship time and time again. Yeah, because he wants to fuck her. However, Erika nodded readily at Tatsuya's response, or rather, what Miyuki had said. Now that you mention it, yeah, they do look alike. I mean, Shiba is a cutie himself, and that's not just how his face looks. It's like the air around him or something.
Is that really what it says?
Yes, that's what it says. And then Tatsuya says, cutie. How many decades ago did that term go out of style?
Okay.
Anyway. And if you disregard our faces, we don't look anything alike, do we? Well, yeah, because they're different genders, but what Erica said was probably unintuitive and a little difficult to understand. What was difficult?
Wait, so are they really trying to portray Tatsuya as like this unlikable guy that nobody craves or
Yes.
wants?
Yes, and he's also very bad.
No. They're portraying it as he thinks he's an unlikable guy, but everybody else worships him. That's what's going on here.
So selfless, just like Jesus. Okay, continue.
That's not it. It's like, how do I put it? Erica didn't seem to be able to express it well herself. But Mizuki came to her rescue. It's your aura. It makes your expression seem really dignified.
What?
That's it, your aura. Now it was Tatsuya's turn to give a dry smile. Chiba, you're actually kind of a clown, you know? A clown? In a typical fashion, he only half listened to her cry of indignation. Her tone of voice, Erica didn't sound like she was very bothered by it, though. Still, Shibata, you're good at reading the auras in people's expressions. You have really good eyes. Oh, this was in the anime. So he says you have good eyes because he's like trying to secretly figure out if she has freaky powers. And then Erica says, huh? But she wears glasses. That's not what I mean. Besides, her lenses aren't curved at all, are they? On the other side of her lenses, Mizuki's eyes had frozen in surprise. Was she surprised somebody had noticed it or disappointed that she hadn't hidden it? Whatever the case was, Tatsuya didn't think it was as big a deal as she was making it out to be. He didn't have a chance to investigate why she was making that kind of face, though. He was out of time, and that was probably the only reason the conversation ended on a good note. Yeah, otherwise he would have just fucking berated them.
The way this is written is just so awful.
Yeah. I'm sorry I made you wait, Tatsuya. As Tatsuya and the others conversed in a corner near the auditorium exit, he heard the voice of the one he was waiting for from behind them. Miyuki had broken out of the crowd surrounding her. That was quick, was his first thought, but he corrected himself. Considering her temperament, it was probably the right time. She was far from non-social, but her fussiness toward flattery and niceties couldn't be denied. It wasn't quite childlike, but she'd certainly never been spared any praise when she was young. In return, though, she had plenty of the superficial kind, mixed with envy and gossip. Thinking from that perspective, she would have naturally gotten quite used to being fawned over. He would say that she'd actually endured quite a bit today.
Well,
He planned to turn around and remark, that was... so this whole thing begins with him thinking that, Miyuki comes to him, and he's like, that was quick. And then, see a nude. She shows up, and he's like, that was quick. And then this whole paragraph explaining his thoughts on that and why it's not actually true. And then he'd planned to turn around and say, that was quick. And while he managed to speak the words, his intonation ended up being rather interrogative. So now he's like asking his sister, like, why the fuck do you have friends? Oh, it's the student council president. His sister seemed to be more interested in the girls cozying up next to him than in his odd... Yeah, no shit. Remember the show, she literally killed him because he talked to a girl without telling her that he would first. Tatsuya, who are these people? Before explaining why she wasn't by herself, she asked Tatsuya to explain why he wasn't by himself. It felt a little abrupt, but there was no reason to hide it. This is Mizuki Shibata, and this is Erica Chiba. We're in the same class. Oh, I see. On a date with your classmates already? Her expression said, and I certainly don't mean anything by that. A ladylike smile was on her lips, but her eyes weren't smiling. Oh my, thought Tatsuya. She'd been under concentrated fire from the grating flattery ever since the ceremony ended, and it seemed like she'd accumulated quite a bit of stress. Of course not, Miyuki. I was just talking to them while waiting for you. Saying that was rude to them, you know. Personally, he thought her sulking face was cute too, but not naming yourself when introduced to someone wouldn't look good in front of the other upperclassmen and other new students. Tatsuya felt a twinge of criticism creep into his eyes. Miyuki looked surprised and then gave a much more graceful smile. So they have like a weird, mutually abusive relationship here. Like, she comes up to him and she's like, "Oh, you're talking to girls again," and he like looks at her funny, and then she suddenly like corrects herself because she can't stand his criticism. Pleased to meet you. I am Miyuki Shiba. I am a new student here as well. I look forward to getting along with you as my brother is. Alright. Can I just call you Miyuki? Yes, go right ahead. Using my last name would make it hard to distinguish between my brother and me, after all. Miyuki and Mizuki's introduction was appropriate for a first meeting, but Erika was already acting very friendly, to put it nicely. Yeah, it's so awful. However, Tatsuya was the one who found himself hesitating at her friendly language. Miyuki nodded, not showing a hint of dislike for a familiar tone and slightly more ethical attitude. Ah, Miyuki, you actually seem easy to get along with, despite how you look. Alright. Miyuki was sick of all the flattery and niceties, and probably appreciated Erika's candid attitude more than she might have otherwise. There did seem to be something more than that being communicated between them. They exchanged frank, unreserved smiles. Tatsuya couldn't help but feel left out, and they couldn't just keep standing there. They were with the student council president's party that came with his sister, so they wouldn't be seen as nuisances, but doing this for much longer would make them into a traffic obstruction. Miyuki, did you finish up with the student council? If you're not, then maybe we shouldn't be standing around. It's all right. We're just meeting each other today. Miyuki, may I also call you that? The student council president, I guess, is talking now. Oh, yes. Then, Miyuki, we will discuss further details another day. Mayumi gave a slight bow with a smile and went to leave the auditorium. But the male student who had been waiting right behind her called out to her. On his chest was the so this is the guy who fights Tatsuya in episode 3. But President, our plans. We did not promise anything beforehand. If she has her own plans, we should prioritize that, right? Controlling the male student who showed signs of not backing down, Mayumi turned a meaningful smile on Miyuki and Tatsuya. Then I will take my leave, Miyuki Shiba. Another time, I hope. Mayumi bowed a second time and left. The male student following her turned... Yeah, I remember this in the show. The male student following her turned around and glared at Tatsuya with an expression that was none too friendly. Should we go home then? Right off the bat, he seemed to have fallen out of an upperclassman's grace, and one who was a student council member at that. But it was almost inevitable. His life had never gone smoothly and easily that he'd never have to worry about something like this. That life hadn't lasted even 16 years yet, but he still had plenty of experience with such negativity. I'm sorry, Tatsuya, I gave them a bad impression of you, Miyuki started, her expression clouded. It's nothing for you to apologize about. Tatsuya interrupted her sentence, shaking his head and putting his hand on her head. I don't like that, using head twice in the same sentence like that. I don't think it looks good in the... He stroked her hair as though his hand were a comb, because he's not human, and her sullen expression changed to one tinged with intoxication. Okay. A second. Alright. Those watching them couldn't deny that they were acting questionably for siblings, but neither Mizuki nor Erika said anything about it. Perhaps out of restraint, since this was their first meeting. Since we're here, why not go have some tea? That sounds great. I'm in. Apparently there's a delicious cake shop around here. Instead, the girls tossed... I can't... Like... He started doing it so that, like, 2 different people will speak, and then in the past tense, he's like, the first person who spoke. Like, it's unreadable. Like, I can't, like, parse what he's trying to say here. Tatsuya didn't intend to ask if their families would get worried. Even mentioning something like that would be needless consideration. Yeah, needless. Yeah, who cares about these fucking people? And in this regard, Tatsuya and Miyuki were the same. Yes, that is true. They are the same. Above all, Tatsuya had something he wanted to ask. It was something that was honestly no big deal, but it had been bothering him. You didn't check where the entrance ceremony was going to be, but you know where a cake shop is? Why is that? Alright. Maybe the question was a little mean, but Erica nodded confidently. She has, like, Erica is not taking the hint that Tatsuya just fucking does not care about her at all. Like, he is being, like, deliberately hostile to her for no reason just because he hates people. She says, "Of course, isn't it important?" "Of course," he repeated. His words came out as a groan, but he didn't care who got mad at him for it. Oh, fucking asshole. It seemed like he was the only one. Yeah, like, Tatsuya, what shall we do? Miyuki wasn't acting as though she cared at all about Erika's senseless prioritization of a sweet shop over that of the ceremony venue. He's really mad about this. He's like, "Wow, I can't believe that you didn't, like, that you looked at the directions to find this." Like, she found her way to the ceremony at time. She got there the same time that he did. But he's like, "I can't believe that you didn't read the fucking directions, but you know where a cake shop is." Like, yeah, how dare she? However, he didn't have to think too hard about agreeing with them. Why not? You made acquaintances, you know. You can't have too many friends of the same gender and grade level. He talks like a robot or something. There was no particular reason they had to hurry back home. Tatsuya had originally planned to spend the afternoon somewhere to celebrate his sister enrolling anyway, and for some reason, his sister is in italics.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. The fact that he hadn't thought very deeply about what he said let his truly unconcerned feelings about it come to the surface. Erika and Mizuki understood what he really thought of it, which is probably why they responded how they did. When it comes to Miyuki, Shiba leaves himself out, huh? He's very considerate toward his sister. So he just, like, shut them down, I guess. The cake shop... Cake shop is in quotation marks. So
Is
it's
Is it
Still
not
chapter
actually a
one.
cake shop?
I don't know. Maybe Tatsuya just hates cake shops. Oh no, it was actually a French-style cafeteria with good desserts. Because this is the level of fucking specificity that Tatsuya demands when you talk to him.
Is this all still chapter 1?
Yes.
Wow.
If you're going to call a place where you can buy cake a cake shop, but it's actually a French cafeteria where you can buy good desserts, then Tatsuya is going to look down on you. Evening was already upon them when they got back home. No one came out to greet them. Tatsuya and Miyuki lived mostly by themselves in this house, which was much larger than the average home. He went to his room and took off his uniform first. They seemed to have gone to great lengths to make the difference stand out on his blazer. No, I thought... Didn't they say in the show that it was a technical error that half of the blazers didn't have the flowers on them? He didn't want to believe that something so silly was affecting him emotionally. What, like, weren't there all the fucking retards on Mal who were like, "Oh no, Tatsuya had his emotions surgically removed"? Like, this book does not imply that.
I'm sure it's added in later on.
But that would then just contradict what's happening right now, wouldn't it?
A little bit. But I'm sure it'll make sense.
I'm not. Tatsuya, shall I get you something to... Okay, here we go. His sister's sense of fashion featured more exposure when in the house. He should have gotten used to it by now, but lately she'd gotten a lot more girly, and Tatsuya found himself unsure of where to look.
What?
Okay. Tatsuya, shall I get you something to drink? I'll have coffee, thanks. I'll be right back. Her hair, loosely tied at a single clump, swayed across her slim back. I don't, like, feel totally comfortable with this. She tied it back so it wouldn't get in the way when she's working in the kitchen. Because of that, the white nape of her neck, normally hidden behind her long hair, was... okay, the white nape of... Like, he's talking about the paleness of her skin. Do you remember that part in, like, volume 6,000 or whatever, when she's like, "Oh no, my skin is very pale. I hope I don't have any European blood contaminating my pure Japanese genes." You remember that?
Yes, I remember this.
In developed nations, where the use of a home automaton robot was widespread, women standing in the kitchen were becoming something of a rarity. Full-fledged cooking was one thing, but only those who were interested did minor things like make toast or coffee on their own. And Miyuki belonged to that rare group of people. She didn't particularly have any mechanical ineptitude. Whenever friends came over, she mostly left it to their robot. But when it was just the two of them, she never spared the trouble. The crunching sound of the beans being ground and bubbly sound of the hot water being boiled tickled Tatsuya's ears. It was the simplest of paper drip bags, but the fact that she wouldn't even use an old coffee maker meant it must have been some kind of fixation. He asked her about it once, and she answered, "Because I like it," so it was probably something like a hobby. When he asked if it was, she remembered her giving him a sullen look, though. So, like, he can't, like, comprehend that somebody does something just because they feel like it. Like, that's beyond him.
Isn't that more in line with the Tatsuya that you know?
Yes.
Okay.
She placed the cup on the side table, then went around to the other side and sat down next to him. The coffee... Is this the part where they have that scene, like the scene where she's like, "Oh no, the world just doesn't understand the burden of people who have incredible magic powers"? Is this that scene? Because I remember that scene. That was one of the worst.
I don't think that made your top 20 listicle.
Technically, every scene made my top 20 list.
Yeah, technically, but not in the first 19.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Let's see. All right. He drank the coffee. He said, "It's good." There was no need to eulogize it. Miyuki smiled, happy with just those two. Like, you really, like, she has that. She's all right. She watched her brother take a second sip, his face satisfied, but not any other part of him, I guess. You see, this is the problem. They're in Tatsuya's perspective for 90% of this, but here they just leave unannounced. Like, that doesn't really make sense, does it? The coffee she had put on the table was black, and the coffee in the cup in her hand had milk in it. All right. They drank coffee. Neither of them tried to force conversation. They didn't care that they had someone to talk to right next to them. It had been an extremely a long time since the two of them felt awkward at long periods of silence between them. There were plenty of things to talk about. The entrance ceremony, they made new friends. A somewhat concerning upperclassman had appeared. Miyuki had been invited to join the student council. She had been chosen to the student council.
My God,
be
this volume goes on.
They could all be up all night recalling the day's events. Yes, we get it. They didn't fucking talk to each other. Jesus Christ. All right, I'm moving on. It's chapter 2.
No.
What?
Sure.
There's nothing left. Nothing happens. It just finds 10 different ways to say that they didn't talk to each other.
Halt. We're gonna call it quits here for now.
All right.
Alright.
We'll definitely resume this
This
another
is
night.
bullshit. I hate, like, this is the worst thing I've ever read in my life. I would rather read all of Kimi no Yamachi right now.
Would you rather read all of Atlas Shrugged right now?
Yes, actually. Ayn Rand, just as a writer, is better than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't disagree with that.
Ayn Rand is better than Mahouka. It's wrong to equate Mahouka to Atlas Shrugged because they may be similar in terms of how fucking shitty they are in every possible respect, but this is worse.
Oh, this is the best $11 I've ever used.
I'm happy. This has made my day.
How many pages was that?
34 pages.
So we're like, what, 1/7 of the way?
Let me see how many pages there are. Yeah, about 1/7 of the way. Oh, there's an afterword.
Oh boy.
I want to see that. Oh, there's an afterword by Tsutomu Sato and a little like excerpt about Reki Kawahara.
How long does the afterword?
It's 2.5 pages.
Let's go ahead and read that.
Nice to meet you all. My name is Tsutomu Sato. Thank you very much for reading this book. The Irregular at Magic High School is my debut work, corrected and revised from the serial version I began putting up on an internet novel submission site in October 2008. Receiving the good fortune to publish something like this that I wrote purely for fun began with a single email from the website's administrator. It was the forward of an email from ASCII Media Works, and it was an invitation, a request for a meeting to discuss publication. I honestly doubted my own eyes. Novels are my biggest hobby. I love both writing and reading them for pleasure. I wonder what he reads.
Sword Art Online.
Maybe. Excuse me. So I had known before that I would like to reveal my works as a novelist in the arena of physical books. Once, as a side thing from my dead-end salaryman job, I submitted a... Yeah, please stay in your fucking day job. Jesus Christ.
I just love his prose. I love the words he uses.
I submitted a novel I'd written in my free time to a publisher's new author award contest. I thought to myself, Irregular at Magic High School was the sort of thing that would only be accepted as an amateur work on the free internet. If only... What?
Not even.
Hang on.
Not even. Amateurs do better than this.
Do they?
Oh.
Right. Wasn't it a bit adventurous for a big-name publishing company to handle? All right, the publishing company, yada, yada, yada. It was for the 16th Dengeki Novel Award, and it destroyed its own credibility. Oh, the work I submitted was rejected outright, probably because it was the worst thing they'd ever seen. If you'll forgive me for sounding like a poor loser, I had to compress the work's contents by 50% to meet the application guidelines. Even then...
Oh.
So he's saying the reason he lost is he
exposition.
compressed it by 50%, and not because he is the worst writer to ever live. Even I felt that there were some issues inherent in doing that, so I wasn't surprised when it was rejected. The world isn't that nice. That was one of a few useful teachings I'd gotten during my life as a salary man. But occasionally, in the course of someone's life, some unexpectedly nice things happen. He spoke to someone from Dengeki Bunko Editing Division who saw his work. He's not telling them their name, so he said he's going to refer to them as M. Yes.
M has no clue what he's doing.
Yeah. M remembered my rejected work, so when they chanced to cross this work, which was my other work, which was on the internet, like, the full version, they said, hadn't they seen settings like this before? Yes! Yes, a magic high school. They had seen that before. I guarantee it. And that was apparently why he'd gotten in touch with me. M seemed to have hesitations about making something that was free into something that was paid. But when I first met him, he was quite worried about whether the internet readers would think. I had thought about the same thing in the past too. But the long economic recession and the downturn of companies resulted in limitations on overtime hours and an adverse wind blowing through the salaryman world. I felt that I needed to find a side job if things kept on this way, and I have it tough. But if I did that, I wouldn't have any time to write novels. I can't say I hadn't been hoping to continue this work. I've accidentally poked a hole through this page. The world isn't really that easy, but occasionally something that is, a stroke of luck, is waiting for you. And of course, this luck is thanks to M, who got in touch with me to make this happen, as well as the admins of Let's Be a Novelist website, who helped me in all sorts of ways even after it was decided. And above all, it's thanks to everyone who supported his work. Okay. Fuck all these people. I'd like to borrow this space to extend my deepest gratitude to you. I would also like to thank Reki Kawahara, who gave me more words of recommendation on my behalf than I deserved. Yes, many more than you deserved. The illustrators, and above all, a deep, heartfelt thanks goes to the fortune that allowed me to deliver this book into your hands. That's you, Ray.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will work my hardest to ensure that this fortune doesn't end here and that I can continue to deliver this work to you in future volumes. All right, so...
Wait, what was that?
He just ripped out the page.
That is so good.
Should I read Reki Kawahara's bullshit, or should I save that for next time?
We'll save it for next time.
All right. My God.